Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. This lovely sunny day in London for me, but up in Scotland for Adam. A special welcome to Adam Gordon from Candidate.id, who is our event partner and our speaker for today's event as well. My name is Natasha Priya-Cannon. I am the Managing Director for in-house recruitment. I'll be doing a little bit of an intro and then coming back at the end to pose those questions that you might have to Adam. We run lots of different webinars, different events, so if you're not a member for in-house recruitment, do feel free to sign up and we'll keep you posted on different events that we've got coming up. As I mentioned, this event and this webinar is in partnership with Candidate.id. And for those of you who are not familiar with either Adam or Candidate.id, they are a talent pipeline software for employers, helping you nurture that future talent as well. So the title of today's webinar is Supercharging Your Candidate Engagement Through Talent Pipeline Automation, which I'm excited to hear more on and some of the developments that you guys have been making over the last few months. So without further ado, I will hand over to Adam. Do feel free to pop any questions that you have online. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll find a little question box. So feel free to pose any questions throughout the presentation, and then we can pose those to Adam at the end. So without further ado, I will introduce Adam over to you. So Adam, over to you, and look forward to hearing more.
Right, okay, great. Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm delighted to be here. So I'm going to start by just talking about, I will be showing some slides and things, but I'm going to just set a bit of a scene around what is candidate engagement, what's talent pipeline, what's automation. So candidate engagement is what you do to take people from being cold to warm to hire ready. That's how we think about candidates. We think about everybody who is currently working as a potential candidate. Everyone's a candidate until they retire. So people say, well, I would never make a job move. And I say, if Barack Obama tapped you on the shoulder and said, hey, I want to talk to you about doing something together, would you take the call? The answer is yes, of course you would. So everybody is potentially a candidate. Let's talk about talent pipelines first of all. So people talk about talent pools. My definition of a talent pool is that is a list. It's a group of people. It's people you might want to hire in the future, but it's not in any particular order. So that's why it's a pool. A talent community, people often talk about talent communities, and I think what they're really talking about actually is a talent pool or maybe even a talent pipeline. But a talent community only exists when everybody can talk to each other. That's my definition. Specsavers have got a brilliant example called Green Club. It's online events and offline events, and all the optometrists can talk to each other, and that's a talent community. A talent pipeline, that is a talent pool which exists when it becomes a pipeline, when you know who's cold, who's warm, who's hire ready. Some of us have started our careers in sales before moving into recruitment, or have started in recruitment agencies before moving in-house. So you'll understand what a sales pipeline is. That is who is likely to be using our service right now, or in a few months, or don't really know who we are. That's what the sales pipeline looks like. So a talent pipeline is ordered in a similar way. Automation really is about things automatically happening. So you set up rules at the beginning, and then in the context of talent nurture, with every click the candidate makes, there is automatically a next step thing that's going to happen. So they click to look at your blog, which is 10 ways that software engineers can be better at their job. They click and look at that blog. Then the next thing they get 5 days later is a message which is includes a 20-second video of a hiring manager in your business talking about the skills that they think people need to get ahead. Or the candidate looks at a job description, goes to you, the recruiter, to tell you that that person has done that particular activity, and prompts you to make contact. A couple of things that have changed over the last few years. We're all absolutely deluged with communication. So it's really important that you can get your messages to people in the channels they prefer, in the formats they prefer, on the days that they prefer, at the times of the day, etc. So it's really important that you understand what your candidates want. You can only really get that from tracking the link clicks. So we're all deluged with information, and in order to become one of the 10 things that people will actually interact with every week, you need to know who's interacting and what they're doing and what's working and what's not. We talk about the war for talent. I think the war for talent is something that is over. I think what we need to now be thinking about is the war for attention. So we need to be thinking about how do we actually get into the inbox, get into the mental inbox of the people that you want to get your messages to. And then how do we influence these people to come through from being cold to warm to hire ready? I'm going to talk about a lot of different tactics about that on this webinar. Candidate behaviors are completely unpredictable. So I know from my data that some candidates like to receive content through email, through text message, through social media messages, through instant message like WhatsApp. Everybody prefers different channels. Everybody prefers different content formats as well. So some people like content by video. Some people like content in a blog. Some people like deeper, richer content like white papers. So it's important to try and understand what's working and what's not, because that determines how you spend your time actually creating content that's going to nurture your talent pipelines. Now, candidate behaviors are completely unpredictable. And what that means is at the beginning, certainly, before you can start measuring performance, you need to really understand, you need to give people lots of different choices for how to interact with your organization. So right now, you could have them interact on social media. You could have them interact at your landing pages. You could have them interact at your career site or your corporate website. And if you can track all of that activity, then you know where they are. If you don't, then you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So you're kind of really spraying and praying with the messages you're putting out there. And I'm talking about as granular as which tweets are working and which LinkedIn posts are working. The next one is about just sort of the concept of net phishing and spear phishing. Most recruitment marketing is net phishing, and the definition of success from net phishing is a big catch. Unfortunately, what that means is you've got to throw a lot of the fish back because they're not quite what you're looking for in your catch. And that analogy is really relevant to a lot of forms of recruitment marketing. You're going to get a lot of candidates coming your direction who maybe are unsuitable. And somebody recently described recruitment to me as the art of rejection. And of course, that's what it is. If you're all getting, from your adverts, you're all getting a lot of people applying who are not quite suitable. So really what I think we need to be doing is going spear phishing. Spear phishing is a more effective way of interacting with candidates because you're having those one-to-one conversations and you're having richer conversations. If you can understand through talent pipeline automation which people are cold, which people are warm, which people are hire ready, you can focus your time just on those who are hire ready. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the candidate relationships, not just at those ephemeral points where you are advertising for a vacancy, where you're actually hiring. You need to build relationships with candidates from the moment they enter the workplace to the moment they retire. There's a trend towards people staying in their job shorter periods of time than they ever have been. There's another trend, which is that people are maybe going back to an employer they previously worked with, maybe 2 times, 3 times, 4 times during their career. So it's really important to nurture relationships throughout the lifespan of somebody's career today. And then the last concept I wanted to quickly talk about before going on to the slides is around hunting and farming. So if you think about the types of roles that are pipelinable, that's where the farming analogy comes in. Farming those people by giving them useful, relevant content that's going to keep their attention with your organization, even when they're not in the market for opportunities. If you're hiring, you hire, as John Lewis told me 2 years ago, that year they hired 1 lifeguard and 1 shepherd. And so creating pipelines for those roles was really not, that was a bit of a futile exercise. It was going to take them more effort than the reward for hiring those 2 roles. Going hunting when that shepherd vacancy comes live was the right thing to do. But for retail positions, for positions in digital, finance, those areas where they're regularly hiring, absolutely creating pipelines is something that was going to be a good use of their efforts. So I'm going to share my screen now. And go on to take a look at some slides that talk a bit more about talent pipeline automation. So what we really want to understand with talent pipeline automation is, where are your candidates? Are they unaware of your organization? Are they aware? Are they educating, which means they're kind of warm? Are they more deeply considering, which means they're potentially hire ready? Have they applied and been hired or not been hired? Applied, hired, and not been hired, that information is what you should be able to get from your applicant tracking system. From your talent pipeline automation product, you'll get who's aware, who's educating, and who's considering. These are all the prospects, okay? But if you know who's aware, that means they're cold. They know who you are, but they're not quite ready for a conversation. Don't bother spending your valuable human time picking up the phone to those people. Those who are educating, maybe, but probably not. Those who are doing things meaningful that suggest they're ready for a conversation, such as they're on your career site, they're looking at content about what it's like to work with your business, they are looking at job descriptions. They're the people who you should be spending your human time, your valuable human time, actually talking to. Organizations I know who are taking this kind of approach are getting to shortlist 50% faster by month 3, when they know where their candidates are on this kind of wheel. In the 20 years that I've been in recruitment, the candidate journeys have completely changed, and candidate sort of ability to self-direct through the recruitment process has completely changed. So when I started, candidates could generate information about an organization through publicly available information at the very, very surface level. So they could become independently aware that your organization was hiring. To go through the education, consideration, and application phases, they had to do that hand in hand with a recruiter, which is great because candidates made themselves accessible much earlier in their journey. Today, however, candidates are in control. They can become aware of your organization. They can educate on your career site. They can more deeply consider on Glassdoor, on LinkedIn. They can find out what the hiring manager's inside leg measurement is and what football team they support. And they don't need to talk to the recruiter until they've done all this self-directed research. And this is why candidates are much harder to reach than ever before. Ironically, you can find them because things like LinkedIn's made the world more transparent. But because of that, you know, they've got information about you, you've got information about them. They don't need to actually reply to your message until they've done their own self-directed journey. So what that means is you need to lay out breadcrumbs. You need to lay out lots of content all over the internet that is going to give those candidates what they need. And if you can track and score what they're doing, then you've got a massive competitive advantage. If you know that John opened an email in the last week, then did nothing else, whereas Jane opened an email, clicked a link, looked at your landing page, looked at your company on Glassdoor, looked at your YouTube video, the hiring manager's LinkedIn, and the job description, Jane's clearly much more likely to be ready for a conversation than John. If you've got 300 Johns and Janes in your talent pipeline, and you're automatically tracking and scoring what they're doing, you can filter them by engagement points, and you can see here's the 15 people who are like Jane, have done a lot of activity recently, meaningful activity. They're the 15 people that I should spend my valuable human time reaching out to. You get to shortlist 50% faster, as I say, by month 3, because you know that information. So let's take a look at this slide. There's a bit of information on here, but it's important to understand. If you think about quality candidates and then their interest level, we want to spend our time with those people who are the right kind of candidates for the role and appear to be interested in the role, okay? But 96% of visitors to your career site don't apply to any jobs. That's like sliding doors. You've seen the film Sliding Doors, you've heard the term. People are walking past you in the street. That could be the love of your life. That could be your best friend. That could be the next hire, okay? If you know who's at your content, who's going to the career site, who's looking at your job descriptions, then you've got a massive competitive advantage. You make contact with those candidates and you're able to understand why they haven't applied. And recruiters tell us quite recently, candidates are telling us that the reason they didn't apply for the job was because they weren't quite ready for a job move, which is fine because we scheduled another conversation in 3 months. Or I wasn't quite sure how to get to your office. I wasn't quite sure if I had enough experience for the job, which is a lot more females say that when they're contacted. You know, other random ones. The one I really liked a few months ago was I wasn't sure if I could take my dog into the office or not, which is why I didn't apply. So the trends are, you know, tighter talent market. Candidates are self-educating. They're in jobs for longer periods of time, increasing CEO concern and downward cost pressures as well. Let's check. Okay. I've got a couple of questions on here. I'm just going to leave it to the end. I think the rules was leave the questions to the end. So let's talk about source of hire. This is from our own research from companies that we know. Here's the difference if you're not automating your talent pipelines. So again, there's a lot of information on this slide, but hires from your existing ATS, 1%. By the time you start pipelining, talent pipeline automation, 34%. Huge uplift. Employee referral, roughly the same. Alumni database, yeah, you can get higher because you're nurturing that alumni either for bringing them back into the business or for referral from there. So there's various different shifts, which is quite interesting. Applications from the career site, down. From job boards, down. Net new sources of talent, down, because large organizations certainly have got large numbers of people on their applicant tracking system. If you can farm those, you can nurture those people, then you can make that the primary source. The other thing is around the actual time spent on doing things. The amount of time sourcing, that means going around LinkedIn trying to find people, hugely down. About 7 hours per week less recruiters are telling us that they're actually doing. So again, a big shift in terms of actual activity. So you save a lot of time. Overall saving, 40% saving for an average recruiter based on our research from talent pipeline automation. So we want to talk about the candidate sort of decision journey. I've talked about this a little bit so far, but if we think about awareness, interest, consideration, and conversion meaning they apply, these are the different kind of steps. There's lots of different ways of visualizing this type of funnel. But we really want to think about what are the different things that we can do to get people from awareness into interest, which also means taking them from cold to being warm. If we think about the different kind of things that we can do, we can serve them with content that's going to be useful and relevant for their career. Those people in the awareness phase, they're not ready for job descriptions. Don't spam them with job descriptions. They don't care. They're not going to open it. They also don't care about your employer brand at that point. Once they move into the interest and the consideration phases, that's when they start to become more interested in your employer brand. What's it really like to work there? And then at the conversion phase, that's when you're getting them to apply. We want to be serving them with things like the hiring manager's video about what the job's all about. The hiring manager's video about what is it that they do to inspire their team? What's it really like to work there? What are the most exciting things that they're working on? You can take your mobile phone into a meeting with the hiring manager when you're taking the briefing, just get them on camera for 20 seconds. And that's great content that gets people to go, yeah, actually, I would like to work for that organization. I would like to work in that role. In terms of content, we think about it like this: content for those that are cold, those that are warm, those that are hire ready. What we know from our data is candidates who are cold are interested in things like industry insights, talent development, career advice. They're interested in useful, relevant content that's going to help them with their career. You've got internal learning and development content that can be repurposed for nurturing your external talent pipelines. You've got things from, if you're a large company, your CEO gets interviewed on television or in publications. You've got industry insights from publications for the industry that you're in. You can use the links for all sorts of different other people's content. You could use YouTube videos and embed them into your landing pages. There's loads of content that you can generate which is not necessarily being created by you and is not necessarily created for the purposes of nurturing talent. So we need to stop thinking about filling vacancies when we talk about talent pipeline automation and think about converting people from being cold to warm to hire ready. When they're warm, as I mentioned, this is the kind of content they're interested in: talent brand, EVP, career-focused events, colleague career stories, that type of thing. And then when they're hire ready, they want a real deep window into the organization. In terms of the candidate journey, here's a good example of what a candidate might do. They might have seen a tweet, an Instagram post, a Facebook post, watched your YouTube video, read the CEO's blog. They might follow the corporate page on LinkedIn, visit the corporate website and take a look around there, and then start to look at some employee testimonials on YouTube. So they've gone from being cold through to warm, which is they're looking at employee testimonials. They're then going onto the career site, visiting your organization's Glassdoor page, registering for your talent network, which means probably signing up to receive information about what it's like to work there. They might click on the careers site and subscribe for an email. They might then come back to the career site a couple of days later, look at a job description, look at what do I get? What's the benefits package of working here? And then they engage with the recruiter. This is the ZMOT, the zero moment of truth. This is the point you know who that person is. Look at everything they've done before then. Look at all of that journey that you don't know, all of that competitive advantage you're missing out on. With talent pipeline automation, you're tracking and scoring all of that. That exact same journey, when the person clicks on the tweet, they get a point. The Instagram post, a point. Facebook post, a point. They watch the YouTube video. Because it's a video, 3 points. They read the CEO's blog, 3 points. It's more about the company. And then the points all start to kind of get higher and higher as they come into the... So your moment of truth is right back here at the point that they're clicking on that tweet. In reality, it's not. You need them to either fill in a form or open an email from you with a pixel that activates a cookie. But let's say they register for the talent network. At that point, with talent pipeline automation, all of that previous history automatically, retrospectively kind of populates. So very, very powerful. If you can see what the candidates are doing, I can't begin to tell you how much time you save well, I can. It's 50% by month 3. So here's what a pipeline might look like. So candidates who are inactive, candidates who are active, candidates who are meaningfully active and very active, okay? You can there's a number of different ways that you can visualize this. So what you're likely to start with is you've got a large number of candidates that are stale right now on your applicant tracking system. By the time you refresh those or do what we call a Waking the Dead campaign, which is turning that stale data into something that's really, really useful, it's likely that within a few weeks, a large number of them have been refreshed. Some of them are active, a smaller number are meaningfully active, some are absolutely hire ready. And then you turn into active conversations and hires. This is a real example from an organization I know, and this was over a 6-week period. They started with 28,000 candidates that turned into 7 placements by the end of that 6 weeks. And then, of course, they're continually farming this pipeline by sharing with them useful, relevant content. I'm going to talk about personalization quite soon because I think that's really important. Now, here's an example. So on the left-hand side, this is a candidate profile, and you can see when their engagements were happening and what they've been doing. You can see down on the left-hand side all the different activities they've actually been doing. So I can see the candidate got to a landing page, looked at benefits, looked at a press release about power efficiency, looked at current vacancies, looked at the code of business conduct. You can see precisely what that candidate's doing. The recruiter would have got an alert at the point the candidate's doing some of these meaningful activities. Some examples of the kind of content that this person received. This is the content they received, which includes text messages, email copy, landing pages. They looked at the career site, they looked at the company's website, and this is the history. This is the history of what they've done around all of this great content. In terms of the platform, you need a platform that's going to be able to offer mobile experiences, because of course most of us start our journeys from a mobile. We've got an email, we click on that link, that takes us to a mobile optimized landing page. So you need a platform which allows a good journey, whether it's on a phone, a tablet, or a desktop. Some examples of the kind of content that works really well: newsletters. They work brilliantly. Not newsletters that are just a list of jobs, newsletters that have got great content. Here's a couple of examples. There's 3 examples here of newsletters that I would say definitely sign up for these, and look at the style, look at the way that they're actually putting this together. Look at the different things that they're doing that are calls to action. In Hung Lee's Brain Food, he's actually thanked people that have been supporting him online by sharing links to get people to sign up for the newsletter. He's got a link here, a call to action right up at the top, which is, can you help get people interested in recruiting brain food? And then the content format is just exceptional. So sign up for those newsletters. There's 3 examples here to take a look at how other people do it. Newsletters work really, really well. Now, just going back to that specific company, the Dialogue Semiconductor example, this was that 6-week campaign. So you start off with the IT architects, and then there's emails, email 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is over a 6-week period. Each one's going to a landing page, and each one has a call to action. So they've started off with a stale database. They've ended up with an enriched, engaged, and compliant, GDPR compliant candidate pipeline. On GDPR, your company may not be able to claim legitimate interest as the legal basis for processing. It depends on what your privacy policy says. But if you can, then the candidate retention date is going to keep going out every time that they click on some of your content, because you're evidencing an ongoing relationship. Obviously, you've got opt-out opportunities at each message. Now, you can, of course, add things like, examples of automation might be, they don't open the email. 2 days later, they get the same email with a different subject heading. 2 days later, if they haven't opened that, they get the same content by text message. So what you're doing is squeezing out the most value from the content that you've put together, and at the same time, giving candidates the best opportunity to interact in the way that they prefer to interact. So once you know how they prefer to interact, automatically, they're going to go into content segments based on that last click that they made. So if they don't open an email, but they do open a text message, as an example, then they get the next thing that they get is going to be by text message. So we think about best next steps, best next clicks. Every interaction the candidate makes triggers a next step. So we think about examples of email copy, content that's going to stimulate interest. Some examples that have been highlighted in this. So this is a Waking the Dead campaign. It's gone to the candidates who were stale candidates on the database. Content like, we partner with some of the world's most famous brands. We've got industry-leading technology. That's what sets us apart. And then we rely on global talent to help us innovate and develop new products. So this is all about bringing people into the journey. And then onto a landing page example with wherever the candidates click, that determines where they are in the funnel. If this person in the pipeline, if somebody's interested in this, they're probably cold. They're interested in skills. They're interested in insights, but they're not yet ready for a conversation. If they're interested in this, how the company goes about its approach to innovation and diversification, again, they're interested in they're warm, they're interested in the company, but not yet on what it's like to work there. They click on this one and they're absolutely interested in what it's like to work in that company. Let me see, hopefully I've got another example here. If I just paste and go, this will work, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, this is in Spanish, but basically what it says is, hi, my name's Manuel. I'm the leader of the tech hub here at Nielsen in Madrid. And here's some of the technologies that we're making great use of here. And then when the candidate clicks on any of these links, whichever link they click on, that's tracked and it tells you something about this candidate. So here's some information, right? That's about what they've just clicked on. Then they continue clicking, and every click gives us insights. That's then onto the website. And of course, wherever they go on here determines what they get next and determines what their engagement score is going to be. So that's one example. If they go straight on to, hey, let's take a look at what jobs we've got currently, then this is going to go in here. And okay, there's an example. I want to take a look at that one, that Angular vacancy. And that's then onto the career site for the company. And of course, that's going to trigger an alert straight to the recruiter to tell them that that candidate's been doing that activity. Very, very powerful insights. Another example of a sort of second stage message, which is to try and determine some influence. And then a third one, which is about really trying to convert. So you could try and convert people in 3 emails. I don't recommend you do that. I recommend that you always give people options to look at content that's for the cold, the warm, the hire ready sections. And whichever they're clicking on, that tells you whether they're ready or not. Some other examples of landing pages. Some other really great examples of landing pages for various different options for this company, Specsavers. Click here, I want to know more, I want to know more. I want to talk about jobs. Make it really easy for people. Just click they just need to click the link and that's it, it's done. Some examples of text messages, brilliant campaign. This is for people in their pre-reg year, which means they've graduated from university, but they're not quite a qualified optometrist. So this is an early careers example. And they're getting content by text message was the primary channel for this. And then making it really simple to engage. In this example, this would be for a candidate that's not in the database yet. So it's an unidentified person. They just fill in their email and a contact number where they're interested in, and then they just click right. If they're already in it, if they're already in the database, they don't need to fill anything in because it's automatically understanding who they are. They just need to click on that button to slide right. Now, the kind of management information that you need, the kind of analytics you need to get better and better at this, you want to know how your total engagement scores across your entire database. Whenever there's spikes, that's days when there's been a lot of engagement. If you can see broadly over the months, you can see a general upward trend, you're doing it right. If you see a downward trend, something's not working. You're not doing it right. You want a contact map so that you can zoom into the different countries and different locations, different regions, and you can see actually where are my candidates? Where have I got the highest number of candidates of that type? You want to be able to see which people are in which different pipelines, who's cold, warm, and hire ready, visualized in different ways: cold, warm, hot, talking to, interviewing, hired. If you can show your hiring managers that, they're going to be very, very satisfied that you're pipelining talent for them. If you're able to filter your candidates according to when they were last active and their total engagement points, that's the holy grail. That's what you really need. That's how you're going to get 50%, get to shortlist 50% faster, simply by knowing who's active and what's their engagement score. And then, as I mentioned, when you can see what they've specifically been looking at, in this candidate example, the person looked at a blog about connectivity, looked at a press release about power efficiency, and looked at these 2 vacancies. So I can open, as a recruiter, I've got a script. I know what to do. I can open my conversation with, hi, I'm calling from Dialogue Semiconductor. I want to tell you about the things we're doing around connectivity and find out your thoughts about the principal analog design engineer vacancy that I'm working on. Yeah, you know what to say. You can build rapport really, really quickly. Again, some other examples of the kind of management information that you can generate, which helps you to get ahead. What does a tech stack look like when you've got pipeline automation in here? So you've got your applicant tracking system, which is the system of record where you manage vacancies, where you really, the people in the ATS should not be a dumping ground for everybody that's applied for jobs over the last 10 years. The people in the ATS should be people that you're managing through a vacancy. Everybody else should be in your talent pipelines. So in the case of this company, it's a healthcare business. They've got a general talent pipeline for the kind of candidates that they might hire once every few months. Like every few months they hire somebody in tax or somebody in internal audit or something like that. So those people would go into a general talent pipeline and they might get just a newsletter once every 2 weeks, something like that. But those areas where they're hiring 10 or more of the same types of people, in this case, is lab management, project managers, sales, and scientists. they've got an intensive campaign happening to these people, a never-ending campaign, always on nurturing the candidates. Now, how are they bringing people into these pipelines? Okay, so they've got their pipeline automation is connected to the existing database, the applicant tracking system, through an API. On the career site, there's tracking script on the career site and forms on the career site. They fill in the form, they come into the pipelines. Employee referral, they fill in the employee referral form, they come into the pipelines. From job boards, there's certain job boards you can add links to your advert. So the link might say, look, if this job isn't for you, but you are interested in keeping in touch with us, or you're interested in content that will help you with your career, then just click here. They click there, they're onto a landing page where they fill in a form. Direct sourcing, the candidate says, yeah, I'm interested, but not right now. Give them the link to fill in their details to keep in touch with them. They come into the pipelines. Social media, the candidate clicks on a tweet, 10 ways to be a better program manager. They're not within your database already. They get served a form. Glad you're interested in this content. What's your details? We'll share it straight into your inbox, along with future content that's going to help you with your career. So there's a lot of different ways that you can bring candidates into your pipelines. I hope that's been interesting. I'm conscious that I've covered a lot of content. I think there's been some questions, and unfortunately, I can't see the questions at the same time as see the slide. And also, I think I was told to wait till later. So Natasha's perhaps going to come back on screen. I'll just stop sharing my screen, and Natasha's hopefully going to join us and talk through some of the questions. Hopefully Natasha's there. Okay, I'll tell you what, I will go on to the questions. So I'll go back from the beginning. So one question is, are these candidates only known and tracked to you because they're in the database? Okay, so when you are pipelining people, there's two different types of candidates that you are able to track and score. One is identified candidates who, yes, are in your database. The other type is anonymous candidates. So candidates who maybe you don't have in your database yet, you're still tracking and scoring what they're doing, but their name is an IP address. What you need them to do is fill in a form. So you might just make sure you've got, for any anonymous candidates, the automated message is, what's your email address, and we'll share this content straight into your inbox. Alternatively, you could use those anonymous IP addresses and you could remarket to them using an advertising product. Natasha, will I go on to the next?
Yeah, so I think there were a few questions around integration specifically as well. So perhaps you can cover off that side. My technical issues are going through a little bit, so feel free to carry on.
Okay, so in terms of integration, you probably integrate with your applicant tracking system, and you can do it on a light touch basis where the candidate's engagement score from the pipeline product sits on the applicant tracking system at their profile. Alternatively, you could do a deeper connection whereby their engagement score and their history goes onto their profile on the applicant tracking system. It depends where you want your recruiters to live. If you want your recruiters to continue to live in the ATS, then you'll do that connection. And you could do it on the basis that it's bi-directional and it's like real time. So it's syncing like every 10 minutes, it syncs. So there's lots of different ways, and it depends on the process and how you want your team structured. If you want your recruiters to be running their own pipelines, then which they will be able to do, they're not going to be able to do highly sophisticated things. You need a recruitment marketing team really to do that. But will they be able to run kind of intermediate level talent pipeline automation? They absolutely will. And that's going to generate loads of great insights for them. And I think the ideal world would be that they are running their own pipelines, because you can really scale up this approach.
Excellent, thank you very much. There's lots of integration bits and pieces that I know you can go into a lot more detail for as well. And another question, and I don't think that you covered it off, so apologies if you did. But how do you deal with GDPR? Are you covered?
Yeah, so every organization's got its own policy with regards to GDPR. GDPR is not a law, incidentally. It's a kind of guideline. And so the UK, well, every country, I mean, there might be people from outside the UK on this. So every country has its own interpretation of that and has its own rules about that. Depending on the industry you're in, depending on the country you're in, depending on your company's culture, you may require a hard opt-in, and you might require people to opt in as frequently as every 6 months. If you are nurturing those people with great content that helps them with their career, useful, relevant information that they want to keep interacting with, they're going to opt in when you ask them to, because it's one of the 10 things that they want every week. So nurturing them means you're going to be able to, a far, far higher percentage, you're going to actually keep the data. We understand from organizations that go and ask for the opt-in, having done no nurture, they get about 9% opt-in rate. Having nurtured the candidates in this kind of pipeline method, they're getting 50% plus. So massive competitive advantage. If you can use legitimate interest as the legal basis for processing, that's much simpler, because the retention date just keeps going out as the candidate interacts. So every click they make around your content, whether it's on your career site, at social media, landing pages, wherever, it just shows you've got an ongoing relationship.
Yeah, brilliant. And going back to the integration piece, I know it can be a little bit tricky for some people. So Sophie's mentioned that if you need the recruiters to use both systems, is it duplicated activity? Are you just wasting recruiters' time, or do they link in together and talk to each other?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, absolutely. Through an API, you can connect this with your applicant tracking system, and it's all about process. You choose where you want your recruiters to live, and it really depends whether or not they are going to be running pipelines and they're going to be putting content out to candidates. It's not difficult. It's all quite drag and drop, and it's actually, if you can use LinkedIn Recruiter, then you can build your own content sort of sequences. But it just depends whether you want them to be running pipelines or whether you want that to sit within a recruitment marketing area. If it sits within a recruitment marketing area, it may be that recruiters never go into the talent pipeline product. It may be that it's they're just working with the alerts that they receive, alerts coming into them either through the ATS or through their email or through Slack or some other method of integration to get messages into them.
Okay, perfect. And a bit of a more specific question from Sally here. So we use Lever. So we have candidates who respond but aren't interested right now. And would these be classed as known applicants, and can you market to them?
Again, it's about your company's privacy policy, but I would say absolutely 100% yes. If you're on Lever, you're probably a tech company, I'm guessing, in which case it's very likely that legitimate interest is the legal basis for processing. So 100%, they are absolutely the people you should be nurturing. People who have applied for a job but not filled in the application, not filled in the full application, so they've got halfway through the process, they're people you should be nurturing. People that have been offered a job but turned it down, they're people you should be nurturing. People who didn't get it this time but would get it next time, they're people you should be nurturing. People who you've direct sourced, but they've said, I'm not interested in a move just now, but maybe in the future, they're people you should be nurturing. Graduate applications. If you think about, if you're nurturing auditors or tax people or whatever, if you're KPMG, you've got almost every graduate accountant has applied to you. Almost everybody that's working at PwC and Deloitte and EY have probably applied to you as a graduate as well. So that's an amazing source of data for newly qualifieds once they've actually qualified, for experienced hires further down the line. That data needs nurtured, or you're going to need to get rid of it. So deleting data really breaks my heart. Try not to do it by making sure that you're nurturing your candidates.
Excellent. I think you answered Sally's question. She said, thank you very much. So I think we're done with all the questions. There's some that have a similar kind of vibe to them. So if you had sort of one top tip for people to start nurturing their candidates, and candidate engagement and candidate experience is such a big area that I think everyone knows that they should be doing. They don't necessarily have the time to do it. If you have one top tip for everyone to get started if they know they're not right in the right place, what would you recommend?
Stop thinking about filling vacancies and start thinking about being useful and relevant. 4% of Fortune 500 companies send anything more than job descriptions to their pipelines, to the people that they might hire in the future. Only 4%. So most people are not doing this, and it's a massive opportunity. Those 4% of companies are performing much higher than anybody else is when it comes to talent acquisition. So stop thinking about filling vacancies in terms of this, and start really thinking about converting people from being cold to warm to hire ready, and keeping them up at that warm and hire ready area.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Adam. Unfortunately, I think that's all the questions that we've had through. If you do have any further questions, please do feel free to reach out to Adam directly. He had his contact details on the last slide, but we will also email them round to you guys as well, along with the recording of this webinar. So you can have a little refresh if you want to look back over the slides, or even share them with some of your colleagues. Do reach out to Adam. He does love to have a chat, and he is more than happy to chat you through some sort of best practice and industry insight as well. So thank you very much for everyone attending. This is my last event of the year, apart from the awards next year. So I look forward to seeing you all next year, hopefully. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll speak to you all soon. Thanks.
Thank you.